free SHS bill to be presented to Parliament. Now, the story here is on citynewsroom.com. We have a free SHS bill to be presented to Parliament. The government is set to present the free senior high school bill to Parliament in the coming days, aimed at regulating the policy and ensuring its sustainability. This move comes amidst concerns of possible cancellation by future governments and challenges faced by the program. Stakeholders in the education sector, including EduWatch, have suggested that parents who opt for boarding facilities should cover the associated fees. Now, EduWatch also recommended targeting the policy at children from poor households using data from the Livelihood Empowerment Against Poverty program as a reference point. At the leaders' media briefing on Tuesday, June 11, the majority leader, Alexander Afenyomarkin, disclosed the information, asserting that the bill seeks to make the policy more effective and sustainable, aligning with the aspirations outlined in Chapter 5 of the Constitution. Let me come to you, Ernest, on this one. It seems like a move in the right direction, but isn't it also a bit late in the day? Because, you know, free SHS started quite a while ago.
Okay, thank you. Free SHS, why would anybody think we must have legislation to back it? And I was privileged to be part of the establishment of the National Youth Employment Program now, YE.
Okay.
And one of the challenges that almost collapsed the process was the argument that it didn't have the legal backing. We didn't have a legislation to monitor and to control it. Okay. And therefore, when things started happening, if anybody remembers from the beginning, even financing was a big issue because we were in a hurry to establish it. We had to use funding from certain sources, and those sources, it's more like you are appealing to them to use their laws to back the program, because there are agencies that had to support education like Govt Fund, so you have to go for money from Govt Fund to pay the teachers on the program. You have to go to other ministries to pick money to pay for people that are related to them. And it was challenging because sometimes the money doesn't come, the people are reluctant to pay and all that. So just a few months before the MPP left office then, we started a legislation process. And the legislation process was mainly not because we thought it was too necessary at the moment, at the time when we were in an election year and all that. That wouldn't have been one of the priorities. But something occasioned it. It was because the financing was becoming an issue. The month ends and people are not paid. Govt Fund hadn't released money to pay the teachers on the program and all that. Ministry of Health hasn't released money to pay the nurses on the program. So something occasioned it. Okay. And I want to believe something is occasioning a legislation at a time like this about the free SHS program. I wouldn't sound too pushy, but from the beginning, the NDC made issues about free SHS and how possible it is. People say it wasn't possible, and we are always quoting Fifi Kwete, who said free SHS is what you call all lie be lie. And there's a video always circulating on this. It's 419 and all that. So there are issues. In fact, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama himself raised an issue about if he has 2 billion a year, the free SHS will not be his priority. There's a video on this also circulating. If he has 2 billion, free SHS wouldn't be where he will put the money. Then also, you see, he made statement. He himself, the president, the former president himself, made a statement that he will review. When you say review, the word is so huge, so vast, because review could mean anything. With this backdrop, if you are the person who had committed virtually your whole life into establishing an educational scholarship for every Ghanaian child. You know, we have had scholarship systems. We had this Kwame Nkrumah's Northern Scholarship. Yes. which we know there are so many people, even in Parliament now. I hear even His Excellency, the former president himself, was a beneficiary. I don't know how true it is, but because there are people who could have paid, but they still benefited from the Northern Scholarship Program just by virtue of the fact that they hailed from the northern part of Ghana. So if you have these things in your mind, and you have invested everything, even when we are crying that there is no money, the president is looking for money to pay for free SHS, no matter the difficulty. You could see how much of his heart he has put into ensuring that the ordinary Ghanaian whose child might have dropped out. We said we were doing some 800,000, and beyond that, the people were at home, right? We had cut-off points and all tricks to try as much as possible to keep people out of the classroom. Not because they didn't qualify or they didn't pass, but just because the state couldn't take care of them. Okay. Or secondly, some of them will not be able to have the money to pay. So he wants to protect this free SHS program. And I side with him, His Excellency the President, wholly, if we have to protect it. Because if the legislation process doesn't come, and tomorrow somebody decides that free SHS is too expensive and let's take it off, whatever we have put into this project, the billions of Ghana cedis we've sunk into this project would have gone to waste.
Okay, all right. Alex, political legacy protection or move in the right direction?
I haven't seen the bill that is being proposed.
Okay.
And so I'm cautious. But I can say this. The protection of free SHS is already enshrined in the Constitution.
I thought as much, though.
It is enshrined. I mean, it's not one of those things that is...
When you read the provision, we will see
it
what
says
the provision
simply
says.
that higher education shall be made equally accessible to all on the basis of capacity by every appropriate means, and in particular by progressive introduction of free education. So the Constitution expects a progressive introduction of free SHS, which is what we said John Mahama was doing. The difference between the NDC or the John Mahama position and Nana Addo position was Nana Addo went for a big bang. John Mahama went for progressive. As the new schools came on board, introduced free SHS to them. That's why we said it's not a creation of. And we all know what difficulties the Big Bang process created and still creates in our free SHS policy. Many people still believe that the issue of who can pay should be allowed to pay, affordability, etc., should have been considered from the beginning, as opposed to saying everybody, because of our economic situation. It was even mentioned in the very beginning by the then finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta.
Yeah.
He was slated by his own,
he made a comment
he was
on
slated by his own party. And then we saw the mess that emanated. Because you have the infrastructural problems and you have the teachers' problems in terms of, and the number of schools. So when you put all those together, a progressive approach, even which you said, was always going to be, for me, a better option than the Big Bang. But the Big Bang is here. So once you got it, you can't, it's very difficult to go backwards. Because it's enshrined in the Constitution. So once you have decided to achieve it, you have to try. As to what you say and how you tinker with it, I don't know what legislation is going to do for you and how you intend to tie the hands of any future government, because their hands are already tied by the Constitution. And if anybody did anything untoward, you just had to take a case to court, cite the Constitution, and say that we have reached this point, and there should be therefore no way to necessarily go back on what you do. In fact, the legislation rather would get people to be able to go to Parliament and remove the legislation, and then that can give them, if you had the majority in Parliament and you said, look, we are not happy with A, B, or C, we are removing does that take away the constitutional argument? No.
No, it's
So I don't want to prejudge it, but it's
Okay.
important to see what, if it's an administrative issue, like payment of people involved, how monies are allocated, that kind of administrative, which the Act is trying to deal with, and then subsequently followed with the regulations and what's it called, CIs or whatever.
LI.
Fine, LIs or yeah, that is fine. But without seeing it, just arguing on the face, if it's protection, the protection is here already.
Okay.
Okay, but just, you see, the reason why I wanted Honorable to read the provision.
Yes.
This provision is in the 1992 Constitution.
Yes, it is.
His Excellency, former President Rawlings, ensured that we have the F-Cube,
Yes.
progressive introduction. He started F-Cube, and the F-Cube is talking about basic education. Our basic education ended at Basic 9. Basic 9 meant JHS 3.
Okay.
So class 1 to JHS 3 is Basic 9. That is what the process has been. And after Rawlings introduced this, from 1992 until His Excellency Nana Addo started preaching free SHS, we haven't been able to move beyond the basic. And the basic has also been only the tuition and, in some cases, textbooks and all that. We realized that this was given a challenge. In Ghana, that's the argument I want to make. In Ghana, everybody knows we want to take military. The minimum is SHS. We want to, every work, even if you want security, the minimum is SHS. And if you are ending your free education at the basic level, the challenge is that he finishes his basic 9 and he cannot be useful to the state because nobody is employing anybody at basic 9. That is why we have had to move the basic level to the SHS level. So the process having been, we have been explaining the process to mean that now I have finished school, quote and unquote, that the kids used to say when he finished basic. Now the basic is not finished at basic 9, but you are moving into the SHS program. And that is why the SHS free must be mandatory.
Okay.
Now, it doesn't mean nobody will do anything about it or nobody should do anything about it. But what I believe, I haven't seen the bill either. So what I believe we should be looking at, and this one, my appeal to every Ghanaian is that let's look at it from the angle where it's difficult to always say this, but I'll say it carefully. It's very, 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 very difficult, but I'll say it. You realize that now some of the best doctors, the topmost politicians in this country, including His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, Vice President Mahmoud Bawumia, Apasar, they are all hailing from the north. Yeah. The Honorable Harunas, the Honorable Bagbins, the biggest in the country now are all hailing from the north. It's giving me the impression that that Kwame Nkrumah investment that he made is yielding some level of results. So let's all support it. Whatever the legislation will be, we will critique what is wrong about it. We will we'll make inputs, and let's make it such that now every Ghanaian, unless you don't want to go to school,
let me just quickly read this. This is coming from Nochu Kotoy in Parliament. Now, he is a member of the, he's the ranking member actually of the Education Committee in Parliament. Now, however, let me just read here. Speaking in an interview on Eyewitness on June 11th, the ranking member, Nochu Kotoy, referenced the constitutional provision, Act 25(1)B, which mandates that secondary education, including technical and vocational training, should be progressively made free, a process that began in 2015. Now, he suggested that the current government's implementation of the free SHS policy aligns with public expectations, implying that additional legal protections are superfluous. Now, I'm going to quote him. He says, there is no need for a law to regulate or entrench the free SHS program. As a committee on education, we have asked the previous minister and the current one that we want to see a free SHS senior policy or document. And for 7 to 8 years now, we have not been able to provide a committee with a policy document. If you don't even have a policy, on what basis are you going to pass the law? It's a question that he was asking. Well, quick 30-second bite each. Let me start with you.
Well, he's just reiterated what I was saying, but he's even gone a step further, which is about the policy. And you know that this has been a raging question for a while. So we just felt it was rushed, and that the progressive nature which John Mahama had started should have been continued. And at least for the first 2 years of their government, with the extra revenue from the oil fields that came on board, we could have increased infrastructure and education, do the policy, and then go from there. And it would have met. But the argument is, oh, some people would have lost out on school. A lot of people have not been well educated. You're looking at quantity instead of quality. We should look at both. And therefore, I totally agree with him.
Okay, all right.
30 seconds,
quickly, you see, when you talk about things appearing in the Constitution and laws, if we don't look at it properly, we saw ROPA, right? Where is it? ROPA is there, the law is there. We haven't been able to implement it. So some law just being there is one thing, and actually taking steps to make sure it materializes is another. You see, the reason why I believe in a legislation at a time like this, you remember President Kufuor's decision around that time to make the university education 4 years was not just out of the blue. Because the universities themselves have been complaining that these new young men and women you are bringing to us have a shortfall. There is a challenge. So what do? They sat and did something. You see, and all that the law should come and do, I haven't seen it yet, but all that the law should come and do is to ensure that we have put the right things there that will regulate this process. If we leave it just like that, and we are talking about policy, there is no better policy than the law. In my opinion, because the law will spell out certain things that will compel the Ministry of Education and the Ghana Education Service to bring their guidelines as to how to make the implementation.
What is the ultimate law?
Thank you very much, gentlemen. The Constitution.
Yes, and he says it must be free progressively, but that the action haven't been taken for how many years? 30 years, 20-something years. Before we are now doing SHS. When will it get to the university level? So it's the timeliness of the project.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I've really enjoyed our conversation today. I've been joined this morning by Ernest Adede. He is a member of the National Communications Team of the MPP, as well as Alex Sabefia. He is the Director of International Relations with the NDC.